This video is to cover two important comma rules. These aren't the only comma rules that exist, or the only usages, or the only ways of using commas that exist or that you'll find. But these are two of the bigger kind of rules, or at least in my mind and in my experience, they seem to be two that come up a lot that are pretty easy to learn, but that a lot of us students and young writers and people still kind of learning how some of the punctuation works exactly. They seem like ones that we often make mistakes with. Just kind of looking at this page with me, go over a couple of things. So again, there's a note up here that these are not the only two rules or uses for commas. So other uses would be to connect two independent clauses or to set off introductory elements. Right? You say first, comma, I would like to talk about this comma rule. Second, comma, I would like to talk about question marks. Before we get started, just another thought. Like with math, many people only hate commas when they don't get them. Most people who are really good at math never say, "I hate math." Only people who are frustrated by it hate it. Don't hate commas, don't hate punctuation, don't hate writing. Let's just get better at it. So the first rule that I want to talk about is serial commas. So not like your breakfast cereal, but serial as in like a serial killer. So to create a list or a pattern or a series. So the obvious use for this would be a sentence, something like that. Those are serial commas. Those are creating a series or a list. Another way to think about this, though, is a sentence like this. So in the dedication of many books, they have something similar to this, where the book will say to so-and-so, to my friend, to my spouse, to my children, whatever. This is a real dedication in a book. I don't remember the book. It is written just like this: to my parents, comma, Madonna, and God. There's nothing wrong with this sentence except for the fact that I don't necessarily know what it means. Does this mean to my parents and Madonna and God? Right, which is not something we would type out. The comma replaces that, right? To my parents and Madonna and God. But so does that mean to my parents and Madonna and God, or does it mean to my parents who are Madonna and God? So the way that it's written, it kind of implies, or it does imply, to my parents, Madonna, and God. And so it's an important clarifying comma, or a piece of punctuation that clarifies sometimes. If this is a list of three individuals or three things, right, Madonna, my parents, and God, that the book is dedicated to, then it would need that third or that second comma, that serial comma. Some people call this the Oxford comma. If you are listing things, you need those commas because it can clarify. Because again, when you say to my parents, comma, Madonna, and God, you might be implying to my parents who are Madonna and God. The next rule is parenthetical commas. So I think we all kind of know how parentheses work. Parenthetical commas are kind of the same idea. Rather than the brackets or the parentheses, you have a comma. Let me show you how that works here. So a sentence I just kind of came up with real quickly here is, I am quite gifted at many things. Butterfly catching and jumping really high are two of those things, but I struggle with many things like anyone else does. This might be kind of a poor, kind of at least borderline run-on sentence, but I think it works for our purposes. The point is that these two commas, and just like if you were to put information inside parentheses in a sentence, you would need two. These parenthetical commas right here imply that this information is extra to the sentence. And there's a grammatical kind of reason why this works, or why we do this also. But just in terms of understanding commas, all you need to understand is essentially this is extra information, because I could say I'm quite gifted at many things, but I struggle with many things like anyone else does. Again, not a great sentence, but I think you understand what I'm trying to show you here. So what we could do instead is replace these commas with parentheses, and the sentence would still work just as it worked before. I am quite gifted at many things. Butterfly catching and jumping really high are two of those things, but I struggle with many things like anyone else does. So I could delete that information, I could put it within parentheses, or I could use parenthetical commas to signify that that information is added and extra. You could also use dashes, which are a little bit maybe more sophisticated. That would kind of imply to me that the information is more important. A reason I would use commas rather than parentheses is because oftentimes as a reader, when I see parentheses, I kind of skim through that information, especially if it's longer, assuming that if it's parenthetical, it's probably not that important. And maybe I'll go back and read it if I don't understand the rest of what I'm reading. But the commas can kind of mark your sentence in a different way to imply that although that is extra or added information, it's still as important to the rest of the sentence versus parentheses, which, like I say, I think imply more that it's less important information, or that it's sub information, if you will. Hopefully that makes sense. Make sure you watch this over again if you need to. These are two kind of common comma rules that you'll come across. Good luck, y'all got this. Commas are not too hard. Just keep practicing.